So Titans fans, I've got a very, very, very interesting video for you today, and as you can tell, I'm very excited, and as you could probably already tell as well, I'm pretty sick. Like, I can't breathe through my nose, I'm coughing, and hopefully that doesn't get in the way or annoy any of you, but I wasn't even going to make a video today, but this just shows how excited I am about talking about this. And as you probably read from the title, if you don't want to know any of the details about this in terms of what I think is a pretty accurate theory, this is just a theory at the end of the day, but the way I've delved into it, watched certain clips throughout the season, again, with that context in mind, it's like, oh damn, I think this very well actually may be the case, which is a very interesting thing for me, because you may be thinking right now as you're watching this video, hey, wait, what are you on about, Boba? Like, the fandom has been saying for a while that maybe Deathstroke has been possessed, from Jericho. But I always never really bought that fully because, a lot of the comments I saw on videos about this was more or less surrounding it from the aspect of, that Jericho wanted revenge against the Titans. And it didn't really make sense to me just from what I knew about the Titans iteration of Jericho. And, just to add up even more, and people are still saying this in my latest video, it just doesn't make sense to me because, like, Jericho sacrificed himself. Like, why would he want to then, kill Dick Grayson or, separate the Titans? So in this video, we're going to break down all of these details, and I've gone throughout the season as well, and with this context in mind, I picked up a few more, so we need to go over this. So if you want to know quite interesting things about this, I advise you to continue watching this video. If you go on to enjoy this video, guys, I'm just going to ask you for a quick like, as it really does help out with this Titans content and just shows that you're enjoying it. And also subscribe with that bell button enabled. All that does is enable you guys to literally know when I post a video, which is quite a hard thing for YouTube to do without that bell button being ticked. But other than that, let's get into this video. So the reason why that scene, the church scene, was abruptly cut is because Jericho did manage to cross over with his father. Now, as I've literally read some of you guys say that to me before, and I do want to say in terms of yesterday's review, I definitely interpreted things incorrectly in terms of this whole thing. I had literally expectations about that line from the promo, and yes, I know promos aren't always talking about certain lines in chronological order. I just felt like off the cuff of my brain that it would be a good line to say to Dick Grayson in the church scene in the past, but now with all of this new context in mind, I don't know why I was thinking what I thought about any of that stuff in the first place, but moving swiftly on to the stuff that you guys want to hear about. So you're probably thinking, how do we know this for sure? Like how do we know that Jericho is still around? I guess you would say alive, but he's still around. Let's put it that way. Because in the latest episode, I would love to show it here, like clips, but all I can do is show you pictures. But watch it again after you've seen this video and you'll think, damn, like stuff's gotta get real. So first of all, let's wind back the clock a couple of seconds when Dick Grayson was talking to Adeline and he was asking for her forgiveness, and she said, I have nothing but pain for you. But if you enable the subtitles, I actually didn't pick this up because the way she says it sounds like he. But I just feel kind of stupid right now because after rewatching that scene again and with subtitles on, which you're seeing right now, she says they. And what was the full line when she tells him to go in the other room? She says, well, they might feel differently, and that's why Dick Grayson continues to go in that other room. And it's just like, okay, that's like quite a promising start for this whole theory, obviously. They being Deathstroke and his son Jericho, even though there's only one man in the room. Well, as we all know, what can Jericho do with his powers? 1 + 1. And then, of course, everyone, that's when Dick Grayson proceeds to go in the room, and this is kind of the main topic of discussion, but don't worry, I will visit other details which just add into this whole theory even more when you have this new context in mind. Like, if you go back and rewatch certain things, it's like, oh yeah, this is probably because of that. That moment when Adeline came back to say he's tired, you should go now, is when Jericho was trying to break through, because obviously Dick Grayson was talking to Deathstroke, but that's when she was picking up like, oh crap, like he's gonna find out about obviously Jericho being there. And at this point, guys, when Adeline appears, trying to usher Dick to leave the house, we get a very, very, this is all one big scene, but there's different cuts in it. At the very beginning of a cut, he's already in the middle of, guess what? The sign language. So as soon as that cut starts, if you're going to go back and rewatch this for yourself, it almost disappears as fast as it is at the beginning of that cut. So at the very beginning of it, he literally has his hands like this with his thumb up. That in sign language means help or help me. I think it just means help. And that's when Deathstroke starts to kind of try and go away like this in his chair because obviously he can tell that Jericho's really breaking through, even trying to give sign language to Dick Grayson by saying help, but obviously as it's already been established, only kind of Dawn knows sign language, so Dick just completely misses that there, just like I did and maybe you did. And that's when Jericho is really trying to break through even more because Deathstroke's trying to hide it like this, and he's grunting and he's saying no, wait, and I believe that voice is actually Jericho, but that's when Deathstroke and Slade Wilson kicks back in and he screams out like Grayson, and he gets up, goes to him and says, if you ever start the Titans again, I will kill every single one of you. But any moment prior to that is when he's really struggling and grunting, and the reason why he seems like he's in pain is because obviously Jericho is breaking through. And guys, the reason I put this as a theory, in the title, because it's not confirmed, but it's pretty downright obvious that this is the case. I don't see how this could be wrong. I mean, why would you put sign language there? Why would you establish this pain and this kind of suppressing way that Slade is coming across on the screen in Titans, the show, unless, obviously Jericho is trapped in there. Also, as some of you may know, this isn't the first time just in DC Comics that Jericho has possessed his father. As in the comics, albeit a very different storyline, he became a part of Slade after his death, even though in that storyline, Jericho, through Slade, tried to get back at the Titans eventually, which is probably why a lot of people are thinking that, since quite early on, that possibly Jericho has been possessing Slade. But as I said, I don't think in this iteration it will be like a carbon copy of that, so to speak. Just because, we've all seen Jericho. We've all seen the kind of person he is, and I don't think he would sacrifice himself to save Dick Grayson's life if he was only going to possess his father and then get back at them when he saw Jason Todd pop up on the screen. It just doesn't really add up. I mean, I get why a lot of you guys were thinking that, but no, I think in this iteration, it's more about that Jericho, possessed his father, and ever since, he's been keeping him really locked down, like in a cage, because he wants to keep him with him, maybe protect him, but Jericho is experiencing, not very nice time within Slade's mind. And why, you may be asking? Well, there are different things present throughout the season which now make more sense than ever, I feel. I mean, I could be wrong about them, but, let me know your thoughts on this, what I'm about to say, down in the comments below. So in Jericho's episode, I never spoke about the beginning part of it, just because I didn't really know what to make of it. It just shows this kind of nightmare-esque scene, and then he just wakes up in bed, and then he texts Dick Grayson, saying I'm on my way to the beach or whatever. But if you rewatch that scene now, with this context in mind, now think of that scene as Jericho actually being inside Slade's consciousness, and he's trapped, and that's why he's seeing all those kind of horrible things going on. There was 3 pigs eating a leg or something. There was a police officer. I don't know, these could all be fragmented, weird, disturbing parts of Slade Wilson's mind, and this is Jericho terrified, wandering throughout it for the past freaking 4 years maybe, which is just horrible to think about, to be honest. And this is why he says to Dick Grayson, well, subtly, not that Dick Grayson picked it up, as Slade was sitting in that chair, help me, but it was soon gone, and that's why Deathstroke tried to usher himself away and regain control, and that's when he said Grayson, and then he went up to him and then warned him that if he ever started the Titans again, he will get rid of them. But let's go back even further, because I think why I'm so fascinated by this theory is because I've always thought that the way S.I. Morales has been told, I guess, to portray this role of Slade this season or in this iteration, is why was he grunting in that very first scene in the cabin that he was in? It just didn't add up to me. I think I said this in my review, you can go back and watch it, but it seemed like he was in pain. There was no context behind it. It just you could just say maybe he was hunting, because he had a rifle in the house. Obviously he's in a cabin. I don't know, you could put anything down to it, but he was literally squeezing that sink so hard as if he was trying to break it, and it was just weird. You could just argue this was a part of Deathstroke's psyche. He obviously looks pretty gruffed up, so maybe that's it, right? But no, now when you think about this, and how that was present day with Deathstroke, you know, having exiled himself to the cabin after, you know, the death of his son, and that was 4 years later. He found out about the Titans returning through Jason Todd on the screen. Well, when you go back and rewatch that scene, and I recommend you guys do this, it is yet again Deathstroke in pain, or just, as I said, like so desperately trying to suppress something, just like in that scene from last episode with Dick Grayson. And he also takes one long, hard kind of look into that fractured mirror of his, as if he's like looking into his soul, but it's not just his soul, it is like shared with another, and he's fully aware of that. And perhaps this is why he wanted to get away as well, maybe just to be with his son, but he did say he would go away to Adeline as well. So I believe, looking back at that was our first sign of Slade trying to hold down Jericho in his mind. I mean, he even has books on the truth of consciousness in that cabin. I mean, whenever Jericho is trying to come out, Slade seems, I mean, it's quite obvious now that he's in some kind of pain. And the reason why I think it got to the point of sign language when, you know, in the latest episode, is because when Dick Grayson was there, that was like his one chance, or one of his, you know, prominent chances to actually really break through. And that's why Slade was struggling even more in that recent scene. There was other little scenes which I just don't really know if, you know, they were truly to do with Jericho or not, like when Deathstroke is entering his house, when Billy Wintergreen is just happy that he's back, and they're going towards the armory in episode 1. He struggles to like remember the password, I believe, and I just felt like maybe that's just him. I mean, if you go back and rewatch many different scenes, it's like there's different glitches in Slade where you can tell that he's kind of struggling for, like, not necessarily fully control, because I think it's more of a ratio of Deathstroke has like 80% control and Jericho has 20, maybe even less. But that's when I believe he types in Joey on the password, or at least, you know, on the numbers, you can make out Joey with the 3 little letters underneath each number he, you know, types in to get into the armory, which is obviously short for Jericho, or, you know, Joe. Another reason why people found that scene weird last episode is like, why would Adeline kind of let Slade back in the house? Like, I know Deathstroke didn't intentionally kill Jericho, but either way, it's kind of unlikely they'd have any kind of romantic connection. But of course, when you take into the account that she could still have kind of some kind of closeness or access to her son, well, of course she would want Slade around in that house she had, I believe, where was it, Nevada? So everyone, that is more or less, I think, it. I'm sorry if this video's been a bit scrambly. I just, yeah, not feeling so great, but I just definitely wanted to talk about this with you. But how would this kind of like, you know, come out towards the end of the season? I'm not mega sure. That's a very intriguing, you know, thing to even ponder. It's so interesting to think how this is all going to end, because we're on episode 10 next week. There's only 13. It's pretty obvious that Jericho is trapped in Slade. But how is this all going to end when the Titans do come back together and, you know, Dick Grayson becomes Nightwing? Is there going to be any liberation for Jericho? Let me know what you think they're going to do with the fact that there is 2 personalities now within Slade Wilson. And even though I fully admit that I've completely misinterpreted that whole kind of scene, you know, where I kept saying in my reviews recently, and how I feel like they need to give us that clarity in that church scene as to why, you know, what happened when Jericho died. But now I think, and I hope they might show it to us when this big official reveal happens, because you have to assume they're going to actually reveal that Jericho is alive instead of just through these clues. That we might get a scene where probably Robin is more or less completely knocked out or barely conscious, because that's how he was after that fight with Slade. And then, like, after Jericho jumps into Slade, that's when he, like, kind of stumbles off, and maybe why the Titans kind of assumed that, like, he was pretty much ridden or beaten, or just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of makes a lot more sense to me now than what I gave it credit for, like, honestly. So I kind of take back a lot about what I said in terms of those scenes. But yeah, I'm very excited for stuff ahead, guys. So as I said, let me know everything you think down in the comments below. Like this video if you did enjoy it. Subscribe if you're enjoying the Titans videos. If you want to talk about this theory with me personally, you can do so in my Discord server. I'll leave that link in the top pinned comment down below. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you Titans in the next video. And I'm gonna go sneeze to death now.